Good morning, sports fans. It's Mark Goldupsky Halpern here on the Sports Insanity Network. We're here for Batters Up, our baseball live podcast, and I can't be more excited that for this week's program. We got the AL and NL East. What's even better is we can be as biased as we want because we're all part and fans of the AL and NL East in this group right here, the three of us. So it's going to be a very fun, opinionated, name calling episode. But to bring you that smooth sound that's going to guide you through this wonderful episode, we're going to kick it over to Mike, the Pun Master Rifkin.
Well, good morning and happy St. Patrick's Day, especially to the people named Patrick, because we all know you're really named after Patrick Starr.
And we all know he's going to have a green beer tonight.
You might. Green beer with the green eggs and ham, Sam, I am.
There we go.
Oh, Dr. Seuss references. Yeah, as Mark mentioned, we cover the AL and NL East today. We will talk a little White Sox as well after they made a deal uh, of their ace Dylan Cease. But again, we will start with news out of the AL East, and it pertains, Dan, to the New York Yankees. Garrett Cole is out 1 to 2 months with a little bit of an issue in his elbow. And then Nestor Cortez has been announced as the opening day starter after Marcus Stroman reportedly told the Yankees it would mess up his routine to start opening day. So, Dan, let's start with the Cole news first. Your initial reaction.
Thank God. That's my initial reaction is thank goodness. Because Lord knows if Garrett Cole had some type of elbow tear, wherever it was, ligament, wherever, and that would have required Tommy John surgery, that would have been pretty disastrous. So thank God. The only downside is now we can't say that Garrett Cole doesn't get hurt because he just did. And one of the constant things I explained this on our new SIP, which will be released soon. So please stay tuned for that. But one of the things that I pointed out when talking about this to Bill was that Garrett Cole was available every 5 days on a season. You can always count on Garrett Cole. And now he's not going to be that pitcher. And getting to that point of his contract, this is sort of the things that the Yankee fans were kind of worried about, that they were kind of hoping that he would continue to stay healthy, not necessarily, pitch every 5 days. If he has to rest or if something happens to his hand, like it is what it is. But major injuries like this is what we were worried about. So 1 to 2 months with some type of nerve inflammation, I'm okay with. I'm okay with it for now, obviously, Um, but man, this is the same time, guy. It is something to be concerned about moving forward if Garrett Cole continues to have these elbow problems and you know some any type of nerve issue is also pretty freaky. So just keep the um for the Yankee fans out there. Um Nestor Cortez, you want me to react to that?
Okay,
Um
go ahead.
I don't care. I don't care. I just want someone starting. If Stroman doesn't want to start opening day, look, we knew once we signed Stroman. I'm sure the Yankees are not idiots. I'm sure they knew exactly who they were getting. They were getting some type of prima donna type of guy. He was that type of guy with the Mets. Uh, everywhere he goes, he brings whatever diva-like attitude, even though he hasn't really earned it. Um, So we're just gonna have to deal with it. If you don't want to pitch whenever he's being asked to pitch, then so be it. I'd rather have a Marcus Stroman that's ready to go on his own time than to force him to be in a situation he doesn't want to be in, and then he stinks. So, look, obviously, not exactly the perfect way to handle things, but whatever. Nestor Cortez is this opening day starter. I'm not in love with that. Um, he had injuries last season. He also wasn't at his best last season. And, one of the things that I have always said about Nestor was, how would he transition into a starting role full time? Because he was, for the longest time a reliever. Well, he did so well, but then the problem is that after a long period of time, when you're transitioning to a starting pitching role, after a long period of time, if you pitch so much, you're gonna hurt yourself because you're not used to it. You didn't come into the league as a starter. So uh just another thing for Yankee fans to just keep at the top of their heads in terms of the stuff for Nestor Cortez.
Mark.
I find it kind of funny that the Yankees get Rodon last year. Now he's down. You've watched, and then he was down. Now you watched him in the beginning, and you see he's already struggling in spring training. Now this with Garrett Cole. This has to be the ultimate punch to the stomach here to the Yankees organization, because I can technically say the Yankees pitching rotation is now more worse off than the Mets rotation was before spring training began.
And it was soft to begin with. And the only reason
And
why we had such hope is because of Cole. So
and
the massive downside. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
anytime, like Mike said, that you're dealing with an elbow and it's automatically you're waiting to hear, oh, it's Tommy John, it's Tommy John, it's Tommy John. And that's got to be a little bit goes into not only the mentality of the player, but the team as well. So now, as you look at this Yankee team that has potential before all this happened, had potential really to be a contender in the AL East. No Cole for the first 2 months, and we don't know, possibly longer. Marcus Stroman is already saying giving problems because he won't take the opening day start because, like Mike said, it's going to mess up his routine. What routine you have? You haven't started the game all season yet. I understand him being a usual second, third, fourth pitcher in the rotation, but if you're called upon to start the first game of the season, that's an offer you don't turn down. I think it was quite silly. So
An offer you
home
can't
favorite,
refuse.
yeah, home favorite Nestor Cortez, which honestly makes more sense of it all anyway, because at least Nestor Cortez will have the fandom behind him. So it's a big problem for the Yankees. Not a problem for me. It's just less I'm gonna have to hear about the Yankees.
Sure.
The thing I look at that becomes a big question is the Mets and the Yankees are kind of in the same boat pitching wise. And there's two pitchers left on free agency. At what point did the Yankees say, oh, God, forget it. Let's go sign Blake Snell?
You think that would have happened by now?
Well, considering the news wise, timing and
should have
everything, you
been-
got to get.
they should have been in on all these pitchers, but they're not. And it's very frustrating because we could really use a nice big 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation, and they're not even going to give that. They're not even looking. And I get the drama with him, if there is any, but Trevor Bauer is still out there throwing 90. This guy's had a couple years off. He's in the upper 90s throwing fastballs. Like, why not even just look at it?
Yeah, I kind of wonder if with Bauer, it's kind of like I don't want to say it's like Colin Kaepernick, but I just wonder if the owners just said, we're not touching him.
Yeah, but for what? He didn't do anything.
Listen, you could. I just think with the drama that would surround it, I don't think teams are going to touch him.
Yeah.
I,
But yeah, that's the big thing with him. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, the fact that the Yankees are not in on these pitchers, and then what the hell with the? We're going to talk about Dylan Cease in a second. But what the hell with that? You know, you were on the phone with the White Sox, and you can't get a deal done. What the hell did they want that you couldn't get Dylan Cease?
Yeah, but by the way, you can't tell me it's one of the outfield prospects when you have Judge signed for another
Oh, now.
7 years. You're hoping Soto stays. You can't tell me you're going to hug one of these outfielders.
What the hell, man? Like we need pitching. Like this is the sense of urgency. This is my issue with Cashman. Biggest issue with him. He wants to. He I swear to God wants to continue to keep this analytic bullshit. He's gonna sign some idiot, and then we're gonna deal with another bunch of bull crap till Garrett Cole comes back. It's ridiculous.
And this is the part that concerns me because Garrett Cole's going to be 34 years old in September.
Yeah.
And we're talking about an elbow issue. I would be worried as soon as he comes back because I don't want that elbow falling apart mid-season because I know that at the beginning of next season, he won't be ready if he winds up getting the Tommy John. Now I have to rely upon guys who, for the most part, are unproven in Stroman, Carlos Rodon, who had an awful year last year, Cortez, and then Clark Schmidt, who is okay, but he's a number 5 starter. The Yankees, I don't want to say they used up all the resources on Juan Soto because Juan Soto is a great ball player, but you knew going in you needed another guy to back up Garrett Cole. And you wind up with Marcus Stroman. And this isn't to slander Marcus Stroman in any way, shape, or form, but the Marcus Stroman, Carlos Rodon, Nestor Cortez, that's not a top 3 that scares me.
No.
Especially when you're talking about playing teams like the Blue Jays and the Orioles, who, well, offensively, they are very good. So, call down 1 to 2 months. Nestor Cortez starts opening day for the Yankees.
Montgomery's still out there. Blake Snell still out there. Like, what are we doing?
The latest rumor on Blake Snell has been the Astros are sniffing around.
Which would be disastrous for the Yankees. Like, can you imagine being in on these talks with Blake Snell and he ends up going to the Astros of all places?
And then, by the way, when everyone's healthy for Houston, the rotation is Verlander, Blake Snell, Framber Valdez. I could be the number 5 starter in Houston.
Jordan Montgomery should have walked his ass to Fenway by now. If the Yankees can intercept him, like, come on now, let's go. What are we doing?
And the other New York team, I do not think is going to go after him. I think they're more now going to be focusing on DH or starting third baseman.
We'll get into them in a little bit, but
yep.
Dan, you mentioned it before. Dylan Cease traded from the White Sox to the Padres in exchange for prospects Drew Thorpe, who was acquired in the Juan Soto deal, Jairo Iriarte, Samuel Zavala, and Steven Wilson, going back to Chicago. So, listen, if you're the Padres, this is brilliant. Cease, Darvish, Musgrove. It's nice at the top of the rotation there.
Now, all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Well, listen.
All these pieces are coming together.
We were talking all off season. Well, Dodgers are going to run away with the NL West. Then who finishes second? Well, the Giants added this. The Diamondbacks went to the World Series. The Padres, who were the talk of the town last year, now they're adding this piece to their rotation. Well, the Padres might be sneaking up on people, which is a weird thing to say when you know how good they are
Mm-hmm.
after they underachieved last year. Oh, and for the White Sox, this is a clear sign like white flag, it's a rebuild.
And I'm glad they're doing it
Yeah.
soon. I'm glad they're doing it, as quickly as possible because they need to. And look, the White Sox, there are going to be years where the White Sox are going to be a hell of a team. It's just not right now. Develop your farm if you have a farm. Develop your farm, and then when you're ready, go out there and kick ass. I just don't want the White Sox to be one of those analytical heavy teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's probably what's gonna happen though. So uh but yeah, as quickly as possible, you get rid of your players that you are not going to have signed.
And listen, develop these young players. Here's the thing about the AL Central. We talked about it last. Anybody can win the AL Central.
Agreed.
So I mean, while the White Sox they are planning for the future, the year now is not that bad because the AL Central is not a division where a team owns it at the moment. So, all right, last piece of news before we get into the divisions: Brewers closer Devin Williams out 3 months with stress fractures in his back. Mark, you know all the feelings of back pain.
When I saw this come across the flash last night, I just knew the type of pain this young man is in. Unlike a herniated disc or a protruding disc, this is actual fractures in the vertebra, and you can't take a chance of making them worse. They have to be, whether they're going to do a cement seal or they're going to hopefully just give it time and rest and let them go back together, maybe some calcium shots, stuff like that. This is actually a more serious injury than they're making it out to be. It really needs to be considered because if you look at another player who played for the New York Mets organization who had some stress fractures and a little bit of stenosis, it shut down David Wright's career much earlier than it should have. So I'm glad that Devin Williams is going to get the treatment he needs and is going to be able to rehab in the proper way. And I think they're handling it right and saying, look, let's get you better. Let's not cause you any more problems down the future.
So the Brewers, who've had a little bit of a interesting off season, will now start the year without their closer.
I mean the poor guy, you're gonna be the guy that shuts it down and you have back problems. That's not exactly the recipe for a closer, So it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, it really does. So wish him a speedy recovery. So, all right, but let's get into this. We're prepping, finishing up division previews today. We have the AL and NL East. And we'll start with the American League. Last year, the standings went like this. The Baltimore Orioles won the division with 101 wins, followed by the Rays, who won 99 games, the Blue Jays 89 and 73, the Yankees 82 and 80. Then the Boston Red Sox went 78 and 84. So we're going to start it from the bottom and then go work our way up. The Red Sox 78 and 84 last year, added Lucas Giolito, Vaughn Grissom, and Tyler O'Neill. The Giolito thing at the moment doesn't matter because he's going to miss this year after he will undergo elbow surgery. But Dan, this is a Red Sox team. Even their own players have said, we thought we would do more. You brought up Jordan Montgomery earlier. We have no idea what's holding this thing up.
I don't get it. You know, does instant credibility not matter anymore for any of these teams? Jordan Montgomery gives you more than instant credibility. So like what's the holdup? I don't know. I'm kind of shocked by the Red Sox and the players saying that they're not happy and that they want a better team surrounding them. You know that really shows you where the mindset is with this ball club. Well, you know it's a shame because you know when you have when you want to go out there, you want to win. Like, don't you want to compete? And the Red Sox just don't seem like they want to compete. And look, hopefully I'm wrong because I would love to have Yankee Red Sox rivalries back and stuff. But this team is looks so bland and boring, and you know it's just tough to see, tough to see. And then of course Giolito injury, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's a tough act to follow, when someone lays it out for you plain and simple, it's hard to follow. I'm gonna ride Dan's coattails in a little here. The Red Sox are like a few other teams in this league right now. Why are we all holding pat? Why are we standing still? Why aren't we signing anybody? What is wrong with Blake Snell besides he sucks and Jordan Montgomery? What is wrong with Montgomery? And to go back one step further, Mike took one side on the Trevor Bauer side, and Dan took the other. I agree with both of them. Dan's side of the fact that, but he didn't do anything. Well, he might have done some stuff, but not the stuff he was accused of. And why shouldn't we look at him in the other Mike? And Mike said, well, is he the new Colin Kaepernick? Unfortunately, this is America, and it's going to go towards the Mike realm. I do not think Trevor Bauer will ever be back in the MLB. That being said, the Red Sox have a good lineup. They got good power, but you signed Giolito. He's not there 5 minutes. He tears his UCL. It's the Aaron Rodgers story in Boston. Aaron Rodgers wasn't there 5 minutes.
But wait. Does that mean Lucas Giolito is going to be in the running to be a vice presidential candidate?
No, he backed out of that this morning.
Howard.
He backed out of that this morning.
Howard.
But Bobby Kennedy wouldn't, right?
I don't think it's the offense that the Red Sox really have to concern themselves with. It's the pitching rotation. And when you look at what's going to be there, and with all the injuries, like we just said with Giolito, they went after Giolito for a starting spot. Now he's gone. Why aren't you going to get another starter to fill your starter? Or are you going to just say, we spent enough? Let's just take someone from down low and they'll get some starts here and there.
I think the thing that bothers me the most about the Boston Red Sox is the firing of Chaim Bloom. Because it feels like Chaim Bloom was brought in just to clean up your books. And then as soon as that happened, you were going to let him go and kind of reset where this roster is. The problem with that is if you're going to do a whole reset of the roster, why the heck did you sign Rafael Devers to an 11-year contract? So you're banking on some of the other young guys, Cassis, who had a nice rookie year, Brian Bello in the rotation, who they just signed to an extension. You're banking on those guys being pieces of the future. But you're the Red Sox. You're known to go out there and spend money. So go out and go get Jordan Montgomery to top off the rotation right now. play a little spoiler. I just I don't know what direction they think they're going. I think that's my biggest pet peeve of the Red Sox. They want to compete, but at the same time, they have to kind of balance where they are.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you're going to play like a big market team, you have to play like a big market team. So when we get into predictions next week, I can tell you where we all have the Red Sox. First place, American League Central. Then the Yankees went 82-80. They bring in Juan Soto, Alex Verdugo, Marcus Stroman, and Trent Grisham, amongst others.
That Trent Grisham signing is going to be so underrated. Like I think he's going to be very helpful. I don't know how helpful. I'm not asking him to do a lot, but underrated. So watch out for that. It was the worst season since 1992. And there's a lot of issues with it. There was a lot of issues. Obviously, their best players did not play well. Rizzo didn't play well, and he was hurt. LeMay didn't play well. Giancarlo didn't play well, and he was hurt. There was it was just a wholesome issue with the entire roster. Everyone underperformed. Um, and also the Yankees have a terrible manager, but I'm willing to give Aaron Boone a pass because it was not all his fault last season. I know Yankee fans don't like Aaron Boone, and rightfully so because he stinks, but it was not all of his fault last year, and I'm willing to give him some grace for it. But final year for Aaron Boone, I need to see the Yankees somewhere close to a World Series. And if that's not the case, then we have to really, really look in the mirror and start thinking about changes. Because you can't have a roster like you have right now, where you have power hitter after power hitter. Then, of course, you have some utility guys in there as well. You get Trent Grisham, who can get hit here and there. Verdugo, who's a very exciting player. Um, and then of course the pitching is always a problem because what isn't with the Yankees rotation, but they have to get somewhere close to a World Series. There's no excuse with the bats that they have. No excuse that they can't get anything close to it. And look, I want if for the Yankees have Juan Soto, I want Juan Soto to go all Bryce Harper with the Philadelphia Phillies on everyone in the playoffs. I want him bombs and everything to get them there.
So you said they don't get close to the World Series. So I'm presuming that means they'd have to get to the ALCS.
Yeah.
In your mind. So let me
But they can't get swept again.
Okay. So let me ask you this. They don't get to the ALCS.
No.
You said the word
Fine.
change. Who's out?
Everyone. Because how long are we going to continue this tango? How long are we going to continue dancing here with these same people? If they're not getting the job done, like what's the point?
Yeah.
You look at this Yankees team, and obviously from the word go, Juan Soto is a Yankee. Thank you for making his transition to New York much easier when he becomes a Met next year. But it's a good signing for the fact that and then this isn't a diss to the Yankees, it's such a hitter friendly park that Juan Soto could easily hit 30, 35 at Yankee Stadium on his own and another 20 to 25 where else. Same thing with Judge and so on. I mean, I think Jose Reyes could have had a good season at Yankee Stadium.
Oh,
That be
the Mets love Yankee Stadium.
yeah,
Every Met hits a home run at Yankee Stadium.
yes. But
Somewhere Daniel Vogelback hit a home run at Yankee Stadium.
a powerful, exciting, and experienced lineup is what we've always come to know the Yankees for over the past, God, so many decades and eons, so to speak. Have has Cashman really screwed up this rotation? Or was he trying to get the right pieces in and it all fell apart underneath him? Is my question.
It's it's the sabermetrics. It's the numbers. Also the young players. Clark Schmidt, who had a good season, but obviously is growing, so it wasn't perfect. Um, but he's in the back end of the rotation. It's shocking to me how they they didn't even think about a number two guy. And I know that they're banking on Rodon to be the number two guy, but after what we saw last season, how do you think Yankee fans can trust him? The Yankees, the problem with the Yankees is they think that once they have it all, they don't make changes. They don't want to adjust because, hey, look, we got what we got. It is what it is. But good GMs like the Dodgers GM, like the Rays GM, like the Braves GM, they pivot when they know something isn't right and they pivot quickly. So it's very frustrating. And for someone that has Omar Minaya in the front office, like I'm kind of stunned that the Yankees aren't making because Minaya always made changes no matter what. Like he was very quick on it too.
Agreed.
So I'm kind of I'm really really upset that the Yankees are not realizing real quick that they got to uh they have to make a pivot and they're not pivoting. They're not using their foot.
The other thing you have to consider is the lineup at any time can go yard. It is the new Murderers Row lineup. And there's reasons why when you have a Stanton, a Judge, and a Soto right in the middle of all that, not to exclude other players, just to give you three. My issue becomes, yeah, they can put up 9 runs, but if they give up 10, it's still a loss.
The other
And
oh,
sorry,
sorry. No, go ahead, finish your point.
no. And a $400 million offense, yeah, it's great, but if you don't have a $400 million pitching rotation that can keep up with it and keep the other scores low, then what's the point?
My thing is what you said before when you talked about the power. They got so reliant on the home run ball, a little too over reliant, where the only way they were manufacturing runs is by hitting home runs. Well, now you bring in a Trent Grisham who will help you run the bases really well. He brings an element of speed. He's probably not playing every day. Verdugo, not a lot of speed, but probably a pretty good base runner. Soto can run the bases when he wants to.
Verdugo can hit. He's just not like a great. He's not like a top tier batting champion hitter.
Oh, I know.
But he
But
can
I'm
hit.
just saying, like, for guys who don't have to hit the home run, is my
Right.
point. But if you look outside of those guys for a second, the lineup's getting old. Rizzo's got mid 30s. LeMahieu, I believe, is 36. Judge is even 32. And by the way, you're going to put more pressure on Judge because Aaron Boone says he's going to play center field. And he's not even John Fogerty. This is a team. If Aaron Judge goes down again and Garrett Cole's already down, season's over. I don't care
And
what.
then, sorry, Mike.
I don't care what Soto does. You know Stanton's going to spend a month and a half on the injured list minimum.
Yeah.
He pulled a hamstring walking out of his room at spring training today. I mean, this team is just, as much as I like how they're built for the most part, I don't trust them. They have to earn this.
And I don't think you're wrong in saying that at all. Like you were saying before, we all know we're placing at the bottom when we were just talking about the Red Sox. No offense to Dan and the Yankees, but is it possible we could be looking at the other bottom feeder dweller in the AL?
No, they won't be in last place. They're better than Boston. So,
But will they be better than the Rays? Will they be better than the Blue Jays?
the Rays, I'm curious on. I'm very curious. On they always find a way, but this year it's going to be very hard.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, so argument's sake, Dan, back to your point earlier of changes. If they don't get to the ALCS, you said Boone's out. Who do you want to replace Aaron Boone?
See that if I give a suggestion, it's gonna be Brad Osmond. He's already the bench coach.
Okay.
I like Brad Osmond a lot. Very traditional guy, kind of reminded me of Girardi back when
Both played catcher, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, like his managing style, he's not a total binder, so he's not gonna rely on the numbers a lot. He's gonna use his gut more. But the problem is that is he going to be the guy? Is he going to be the spokesperson that the Yankees want? Because ultimately the Yankees want a spokesperson, excuse me, to be in the clubhouse. So just something to point out there. When I was doing SIP yesterday with Bill Murphy, we were sort of talking about this. Joe Girardi is one of the Yankee broadcasters this season. And again, not saying this is going to happen, but is it possible that maybe
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
He could climb his way back in? Now, I say no, because I think the Yankees have lost trust with Joe Girardi. Phillies lost trust with Joe Girardi. But he's another guy that I would at least consider. Another person I would consider, Don Mattingly. Like, why not? Why not bring the captain back?
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I think you're going to say bring Buck back, but I was going to.
Buck, I love Buck Showalter. I think he was cheated out, even though the Yankees won a bunch of championships with Joe Torre. Thought he was cheated out of the job. Like, I really think. I thought he didn't get a proper chance. But Buck Showalter, I really think look, with the way the game has changed, I just don't think Buck's going to get another chance, and that's a shame.
All right, so they're the Yankees. The Toronto Blue Jays coming next. They were 89-73 last year. They bring in Dan, your good friend Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, my good friend Justin Turner, and Yariel Rodriguez in the rotation. I rather the bullpen. Mark, this feels like a make or break year in Toronto, and not just for the Maple Leafs.
No, for a few players, one of them being the most famous on the team being Vladimir Guerrero Jr. This is his last year in his contract. And the question becomes, I mean, he's still very good. I mean, he's not the best, but he's a good defensive first baseman. I mean, he will almost fit on any team you want to put him on, but the question is, what type of market does he want to be in, and does he want to be overshadowed, or does he want to be the namesake? I see a lot of players, no matter what, by the end of this season, possibly saying it, this is it. If my contract's up with Toronto, they're not going to do anything for a while to make it. It's time to go. And we can see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. decide that it would be best for him. Let's say, I mean, gosh forbid, goes to the Yankees as a DH, or whatever. I mean, no matter where he goes, he's going to be a massive threat. If he decides to stay loyal to Toronto, fine, but his father jumped around from teams, so I don't really think he's too worried about loyalty. I think he wants to make his name on the game. I think he wants to be remembered for something. And what is one thing everybody's always remembered for is the amount of times they appeared in a World Series and how many World Series rings they have. So you look at the rest of this team, and there's one name that I think that has to have a huge bounce back year, and that's my boy Yasiel Kikuchi. I was very big on signing him last year to come to the Mets. I wanted him to be there. I thought he could do good, and then I saw the putrid season he put up, and was really kind of surprised because of the way he had come out in spring training and whatnot. I think if he can have a solid year, it'll take the pressures off your Chris Bassett and your Jose Barrios.
Well, Bassett had a pretty nice year last year. So did Kevin Gausman, who I think is 100% back. The guy I'd be worried about is Alek Manoah. 2 years ago, you're talking about a Cy Young finalist. Last year, he got sent to the Complex League, and his spring training this year isn't off to a great start. If the Toronto Blue Jays want to go anywhere, they're going to need Alek Manoah. Because I said it before after last year. When he refused to go back to AAA, I felt you had the need to move him, especially if he's going to struggle again, because we know how much the media will go after him. Hey, you didn't want to go back to AAA and you're struggling again. It's not a good sign. Maybe a change of scenery would be best for him. This is a team that has some big aspirations. You mentioned Vlad Guerrero, Bo Bichette, Dalton Varsho came over, had a nice year. George Springer's had a nice couple of years there when he's healthy. This is a team, they're kind of like the Padres in the sense of we're waiting and we're expecting this to happen. And if it doesn't happen now, when will it happen? So
Right.
I think the Blue Jays need to figure this thing out sooner rather than later. If we're curious on a couple of things, managers another spot with them, because they gave one of those games to the Twins in the wild card series last year away. So,
Yeah. Blue Jays are interesting. I'll tell you that. But it's not really a make it or break it year. If obviously they, if they don't, commit to their big time young guns, at least one of them, it's going to be pretty odd. Like I can see the Blue Jays, definitely wanting to stick with their team. This is an interesting year because they have these players, but they really haven't done anything with them. And I'm starting to get a little worried that it's gonna blow past all the time when they're gonna be good, not necessarily prime. They're not in the prime of their careers yet. But right when they're hungry and they want to like play well, want to win, you know?
Yeah, and look, that's why this year is so important for them because the team we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, like they're young and they're going to continue to get better. Then you have the Yankees, you have Boston's eventually going to do something, and you got the Rays who you never count out. But speaking of the Rays, last year they were 99 and 63. No massive additions, but a massive loss in trading Tyler Glass now to the Dodgers. Mark, every year the Rays find a way.
You know the Rays are going to absolutely take every advantage of building another farm system with that Glass now trade. So you know that something's brewing there. They are one of the smartest baseball front offices ever. And look, they'll never win a World Series with their tactics. Never. But they are one of the smartest because they know exactly because they've been doing this analytic nonsense. They've been putting money into it. They have the people that run it. They've been doing this for well over a decade, decade and a half. So, they know what they're doing. They know who to target. They know how they're going to get teams. They know exactly. It's unbelievable. Halpern.
Well, when you like Dan and Mike said, the Rays find a way, and I had the pleasure of working for the Rays organization back at and no matter what happens, they seem to find their way around it, whether it's news about a player getting injured, news about a player running away with a minor, and news about a player who didn't. They make it work so that it fits the organization. And, I'm looking at the pitching staff right now. It might be a hodgepodge of players, but all of them have experience. You have Aaron Civale coming over from Cleveland, who's had a couple of good years with the Guardians, and it's going to have a chance to show that off. That's just to name one. When you look at the team as a whole, they're probably, if they're in striking distance by July, they might have a couple of players they can use to trade to help bring in talent at a couple of positions that are lacking, whether it be on the starting rotation or it be in the lineup. There's one guy I want to do well. And that's my guy who I wanted to stay with Mets, but left with good old Jimenez in the Francisco Lord trade, and that's Amed Rosario. I don't think he's been given a chance, no matter where he's been, whether it's been with the Mets, it's been Cleveland, where he was for one half an inning last year. I don't know.
He raked with both.
Yeah, he's a good young ball player. He's got speed. So I just think once a team utilizes him and sees what he can actually produce on the full season, then you're looking at beyond the picture. But this team isn't a no-name team. You got Josh Lowe and Randy Arozarena returning. So you got familiarity, you got experience, and you got youth, something a baseball team needs to have to succeed.
And they are the definition of an analytical team.
Yes.
They are the one, listen, they are the one who have set the standards of analytics. It's amazing what they do with such a small payroll. I think this year's going to be challenging. As much as you brought up Arozarena, Josh Lowe, Brandon Lau, they're going to hit. My question is the pitching side. Glass now, gone. Shane McClanahan out after having Tommy John last year, after he was having a phenomenal year. They don't have that guy. In years past, we could say, oh, They could throw out James Shields or David Price, and we'd be like, all right, there's your stopper. They don't have that at the moment. And listen, if they prove me wrong, I won't be surprised because they've proven everyone else wrong for the last decade and a half. This is a team. They know the best compliment I could pay the Rays. They know who they are and they know what they're good at.
Yeah.
So listen, if they're gonna win, they're gonna win. If not, you can't even hold it against them because they're gonna be relevant again in 2 years.
Exactly. I'm telling you right now, that trade with Glass now, they're gonna reap the benefits of it.
Oh yeah.
They know exactly what to do to get back to relevancy if they fall out. Not saying that they would fall out because it's the Rays. They'll try to find a way to compete no matter what, but oh my God.
And then you've got the Baltimore Orioles.
Boo.
101 wins.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
They add Corbin Burns and Craig Kimbrell to their pitching staff.
Want the Nationals to kick their ass this season, the battle of the Beltway.
Listen, we'll get to the Nats. Nats could be fun. But the Orioles, they are the team everyone in baseball should be envious of.
Yeah.
They're young, they're fun to watch, and they got more coming.
And they already have had a season where they won with this squad. Maybe not the exact squad, but pretty much most of the same players. 100-win season, and they've lost in the playoffs. It is really dangerous to have a great team like the Orioles who have no playoff experience and already lost in the playoffs. That is a recipe for success. That's dangerous. You have a team that's hungry to win. They know what it feels like. The disappointments of the postseason. You know they don't want to feel that again.
Mhm.
No, they don't want to feel that again. So you thought last season was something of spectacular, unbelievable stuff. Watch out for this season. Corbin Burns leading the rotation. Oh my God. That is going to be one hell of a squad there. I'll be shocked if they take a nosedive. Be very shocked.
This Baltimore Orioles team, to me, I think I used the right words. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And the reason why I'm saying that is on the baseball card side of the world, there is not a player on this team anyone doesn't want to get out of a break right now. Obviously, the names of Jackson Holliday, Adley Rutschman just lead the way in this young group. Don't forget about Colton Cowser. This team, as said eloquently before, has won together already. And that's a very big aspect because now they know who they're coming in and playing together as. It's not a hodgepodge team coming together the first time. No, they all know most of their strengths and weaknesses. Yes, they have time to grow and learn a little bit. I think this team is your winner of the AL East, hands down. And I'd be very shocked to not see them in the ALCS this year. I think this team is very strong, and I think with all the talent they have, the player that's going to, provided he stays healthy, of course, I think one of the players who's going to really make a huge impact is going to be Ryan Mountcastle. I think he's going to have a huge bounce back year with the protection and lineup from these young kids.
And talking about a great spring training, how about the great spring training of Jackson Holliday? I mean, dude can rake. And that's just what they eat. Another young player who can rake. Between him, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, this team is set up perfectly for the future. And Dan, you're closer to Baltimore than us. There has to be a feeling of fresh air there because of new ownership coming in.
Oh no, you have no idea. The Orioles fans that are in my workplace, you have no idea how excited they are that they no longer have those crappy ass owners and stuff. So
And then on top of that, the new ownership pays off right away.
yeah,
They add Corbin Burns. What was
yeah.
the one thing we wanted the Baltimore Orioles to add last year at the trade deadline? Top of the rotation guy. Well, they went out and added Corbin Montgomery Burns, who now can twiddle the fingers and go, excellent. So, to lead off,
Burns will be the most talked about name come the end of next season.
listen, I love this team. I'm with you, Mark. I wouldn't be shocked if they got to the ALCS. Hell, I'll take it a step further. I wouldn't be shocked if they're the American League representative of the World Series.
The team is built to do so.
But the one thing is, it's easy to be the hunter. How do they perform being the hunted?
Exactly.
I guess Dan can answer this perfectly, as Dan's team was always the hunted. Now they're the hunters. So I just wanted to get that in there, and I want to hear Dan's point on this.
It is really this is the Yankees were always a dangerous team when they lost in the playoffs. Year after year after year, they're like, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna kick your ass. And they did. They didn't win anything, but they did. You cannot allow this Orioles team to lose. Because with this young team, you know they're gonna fight back. And you know what? Especially with Brendan Hyde as manager, who has done a phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
he's done a phenomenal job with that ball club. And of course, Elias, as the general manager, has done a terrific job building this team. You do not want to give this team any reason to kick your ass year after year after year.
The job Brandon Hyde has done kind of reminds me of the job AJ Hinch had done in Houston. Like they let him grow with these young guys, and then eventually they got to the pinnacle. And now Brandon Hyde trying to do the same thing with Baltimore. So it's bird season in Baltimore. Well, actually, technically, isn't it always bird season in Baltimore? Because you got the Orioles and then you got the Ravens.
Yeah,
I mean, it's always bird season in Baltimore. But. All right. On to the National League East. Last year, the division looked like this. The Braves went 104 and 58. The Phillies 90 and 72. America's team, the Miami Marlins, were 84 and 78. The Mets were 75 and 87. And the Washington Nationals were 71 and 91. All right,
Sucking it up as usual.
Again, starting from the bottom, we'll start with the Nationals, 71 and 91. They added Yankee legend Joey Gallo, Reds legend Nick Senzel, and reliever Dylan Floro. But Dan, you're down there, and these young players, C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, they're building a decent club down there in D.C.
Yeah, and look, they're obviously they're not ready to, go out there and win right now. But I always tell people, you got to be careful with some of these players because you never really know what you're truly going to get until you start to see the product. This is this is a Nationals team that has a good farm system. They built a good farm system via trades and hopefully development.
Hmm.
So far, the process is working. All these young players are coming up and they're performing well. So I'm kind of predicting the Nationals, and I think people in DC sort of agree with me. Some sort of don't because they're very pessimistic. Um, but I'm sort of in the boat that this is going to be like the Baltimore Orioles like 2 years ago, where they start bringing up some of the players, not all of them, but some of the players, and they're going to give an instant spark. And then all of a sudden they're going to win like four in a row, five in a row. They're going to, you know, have that up and down type of season. But for the most part, they're going to win a lot of games. They're not going to be close to a division, obviously, but they're going to win a lot of games and they're going to surprise people. I definitely see something like that happening in DC this season, which would be great because this is a baseball town, so it'll be awesome to watch. I'm excited to see what Josiah Gray can do.
Mm.
I really think him and Mackenzie Gore are going to be a solid 1-2 punch. Like I really do see that. I think Josiah Gray's the best. Like he has ace-like stuff.
You're
And
not
if,
wrong.
and if Patrick Corbin can find his game, that's a solid top three in a rotation.
But Corbin just needs to be a third of what he was when he won the
Right. That's what I'm saying.
and that's all it is. Like, people are kind of worried they don't trust Corbin anymore because he's falling off, and rightfully so. But just give me a third of what he
Yep.
was in 2019, and that's a massive win for the Nationals.
Nationals, the pain in the asses that they are, won a World Series a few years ago and then displaced their roster. I kind of like what Dan had to say regarding, bringing up all these young kids and starting to get that feel again and kind of be like Baltimore and start building youth wise is really the way most MLB teams should go. Let these kids make a name for themselves and then let them do what they want for their
And
careers.
do exactly what the Braves are doing and keeping them
Right.
together.
Oh man, I wish the Orioles would take the Braves method of just
And I
buy out
think
those
I think I
arbitration
think they
years.
will. I think they will.
Yeah, that is a good method.
You have a not old, but not really super young rotation. And Mike called it out. The one of the names that is probably the most ominous in that whole lineup is in that rotation is Patrick Corbin. The guy has not been reliant over the last few years, not even at Reliant Field. He has not been able to give up less than 5 earned runs a game. It's time to say goodbye to Patrick Corbin, but if I'm the Nationals, I understand why they're making him pitch when you've given him all that money. You're not just going to let him take that and go sit in sunny Florida and smile at you. Um, there's a lot of names on this team that I would like to see do well and get a little bit of a chance. You got your Victor Robles, who's going to get another shot in center field. But I would like to see Nick Senzel coming over from Cincinnati go into that like Todd Frazier role model player that he is. He's a good leader in his ball club and he's a good leader in the locker room. If his play on the field can replicate that, I think he'll make it an enjoyable place to play and maybe be able to recruit a name here and there.
The two guys I'm looking at, Dan, you talked about the rotation. I'll talk about the lineup. CJ Abrams looks like a star shortstop. And getting him and Gore in the Juan Soto deal, that's a steal for Mike Rizzo. And the other guy's Keibert Ruiz, who behind the plate looks like he's going to be a stalwart back there. And I think what we saw at the end of last year is you kind of saw them start to mold into this these young players start to mold into what they think they can become. And I think the biggest key of it all is Davey Martinez is still there.
Yeah.
If
And
you make the managerial change, I don't know how that impacts a young team.
right. And I mean, Mike, over the years we talked about Dave Martinez because we feel like that he's gotten a really tough raw deal with how everything is going. You know, he was promised a good team and then they blow it up. And then the Nationals kind of owe it to him to at least see it through, at least until they get good. Now, after they get good, I don't know what they're gonna do because you know the second that they lose, they're gonna want to make changes. Like it's just the natural way of doing things now in baseball.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens at
Dave
DC.
Martinez being there is huge. Like
Yeah.
it's good for the players, it's good for the team for right now, and you know, future wise, I don't know what's gonna hold.
Yeah. So that's the Nationals. Next up, you get the Mets, who last year won 75 and 87. Brought in Dan's guy, Luis Severino. Sean Manaea came in, cut his hair for some
That's the
stupid reason.
hair.
And Harrison
It
Bader.
was better, honestly.
Yeah, I like the hair, man. I can't deny it.
It's like yes.
Mark the Mets.
Well, what I've been waiting for, as usual, after the Cowboys disappoint me, is to get back into baseball and be able to let the Mets try to do the same thing. Now,
Challenge accepted.
From the sound of the gun, the start out of the gate, the say of the word go, the Mets had it in for them. They were focused on, while every other team was scouting and looking at multiple players. I believe Steve Cohen's only target was Yoshimbo Yamamoto, and in the end, he ended up going to the Dodgers. So Cohen and Stearns decided to pivot and bring in smaller name pitchers, but with MLB experience. And one of the names just mentioned, Sean Manaea cut his hair. I like the hair. It reminded me of DeGrom a little bit, but no way Sean Manaea can ever be compared to DeGrom. But he's pitched well in the spring training. Mind you, in spring training. Doesn't mean anything. We got Luis Severino over from the Yankees. The thing that's encouraging is he's constantly hitting 98 to 100 on the gun. A whole 5 miles per hour higher than what he was throwing in the Yankees organization last year, whether he was holding it back or not. The loss of Kodai Senga has to be one of the biggest kick to the gonads ever. Kodai Senga came over last year and won the hearts and minds of Mets fans and proved he was going to be the true helper to get Yamamoto. And I believe he did everything he could to help bring him. But I'm sorry, if you give him the option, Senga, the Mets in future, or play with Shohei and win now, more people are going to go Shohei and win now. And I understand that. It's business. It might not be business I like, but whatever. The Mets have a great all-around staff. And yes, I am the Mets fan, so I can be pounding the chest of what we got. We got the polar bear at first. We got, hopefully, the captain in Francisco Lindor at shortstop. The resurgence of Jeff McNeil from last year would be definitely nice. The sharing at third base between Beatty and Vientos. Obviously, the outfield made up of Marte, Brandon Nimmo, and now center fielder, defensive stud Harrison Bader, who will show hitting styles of Ray Ordonez. And to keep it great, Francisco, I am your catcher of the future, Alvarez. I'm not saying this Met team is going to win the division. It would be pretty awesome if it happened. But for that to happen, you would need the whole Atlanta Braves organization to fall into a precipice for that to happen. And I don't think that's going to be the case. But is the second wild card spot out of possibility if the Mets can put together a winning a winning team? No. But until the first pitch happens and we all see our Family Guy meme not come to fruition, then we can move on.
It's one of my favorite memes, not to lie. Dan, your thoughts here on the Mets?
Don't sleep on the New York Mets. Like, that is the wrong thing to do. I look, this lineup is good. When Lindor's on it, Pete Alonso, forget it. He's gonna be on it. He's gonna have like another 40 home run, 100 RBI season, or at least close to 100 RBI. And then of course the young players too. All the young players. Like, I think that this Met team, I don't know if they'll win the division, but I do know that they're going to compete for a playoff spot for sure. And look, the rotation may not feature Justin Verlander anymore, but don't sleep on this rotation either. Look, I have high hopes for Luis Severino. I think on a 1-year prove it deal. He's no longer a Yankee pinstripe, so obviously now, of course, you can't get away from Mendoza since he's the manager now. But still, I do think that as a 1-year prove it deal, I think he'll show out. I don't know who'll be the best pitcher in baseball, but he'll show out well. But keep an eye on that and don't underestimate them, because they really, when everything goes right, it's a pretty darn good team.
You just said, I think, the key phrase that holds the season together. If everything goes right, because last year everything went wrong. Injuries, down years, you name it, it went wrong for the New York Mets. This year, I don't have the same expectations I had last year for them, but I have the expectation of, I think they could compete for a wild card, because why the hell not? Arizona won 84 games. This team has the talent to win 84 games.
Yep.
The rotation, despite having some question marks, you got glimpses into some of the young guys who may be able to come up. Tyler McGill's had a phenomenal spring training. I think that's a guy who could be a key in the rotation. I think the most important thing they got, though, and we can talk about signings and whatever, the return of Edwin Diaz is massive.
Yes.
Because now everyone in that bullpen slots into their specific role. And when the trumpets start playing at Citi Field, you have a very good opportunity to win the game, because your lockdown closer is there. That did not occur last year. As good as David Robertson was until he got traded.
It was a depressive state what happened to Edwin Diaz. Now this is a big morale booster.
And Mark, you brought up, hopefully Jeff McNeil has a bounce back here. I'm looking behind Starling Marte. If he can stay healthy, he's the best base stealer this team has, because Brandon Nimmo refuses to run. That changes the dynamic of this entire lineup.
And don't expect Brandon Nimmo to be running, because
I don't expect Brandon Nimmo to run.
Now that they're hijacked by a spokesperson running the clubhouse, it's
listen.
It's hard.
Yeah, but listen, maybe Bader runs a little bit more, helps them out, because he ran.
That's another side. Harrison Bader, you put Harrison Bader, great defensive center fielder. And then you never know, he could maybe pop a home run or two. It's very possible.
Yeah, he's a master defender.
Mm-hmm.
So I like what, for the most part, what David Stearns did. I think the one thing they are missing, and I would say a frontline star, but eventually, according to all signs, they'll get Kodai Senga back. They need another bat.
And that we see as ongoing talks between David Stern, Steve Cohen, and what we have learned is that the Mets are going to look externally for third base and DH help. It won't come of the likes of the lawyer who signed with the Oakland A's, which, whatever, I guess when you're traded and you make a home for yourself out there, you don't want to play all the way back across the country again. So he took a job out there. He could have it end up having a resurgence here and get himself a contract somewhere for 1 to 2 years. So all the best to JD Davis. Right now, we see the Mets solidly going into with Vientos and Beatty as their third baseman. And Mark Vientos right now is slated to be in the DH spot, most likely. There are names out there that are going to fit that DH spot, and I still, like Mike and I talked last year, the one name, even when the trade deadline came up, we wanted JD Davis. Please let this
Martinez.
one. Did I say Davis?
You
Sorry.
said Davis.
Reverse. Ding. JD Martinez.
There are
Please.
talks to JD Davis.
Yeah, but please let's bring him home.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Then you have one of the surprises in baseball last year, the Miami Marlins, who went 84 and 78. Their big addition, you even called a big addition, was Christian Bethancourt. But this is a Marlins team, and I don't want to sound mean. I smell regression.
Mm.
They did also brought in Tim Anderson, but look at their rotation. Sandy Alcantara is going to be out. Yuri Perez looks like he's not going to make the rotation out of spring training. Their rotation is hurt and banged up, and they really just don't have the offense to sustain a bad pitching staff. They don't. Mark.
Miami Marlins are always that conundrum team. They when they show up and they have motivation and they have a coach that understands the mentality of winning. There are years Miami surprises everybody. I mean, last year alone was a huge surprise. Nobody expected them to finish third. Nobody expected the Mets to finish fourth. But what about this Miami team is special? Like Mike said, you got multiple players who are going to miss this year for pitching due to Tommy John and other injuries. Your biggest signing is a guy that nobody wanted in Tim Anderson. And that being said, he was an $11 million player getting, I believe it's $4 million on this year's deal. The name on this team I want to watch is Luis Arias. I think this kid is electric. I think he gets contact on the ball, and he's like a little fast penguin out there when he gets a hit. Cuts corners.
Penguin.
A fast penguin. He kind of waddles a little bit, but he's a good ball player. So, I mean, Miami finishing third. I don't think they will this year, but hey, they've surprised us in other ways before.
All right, Dan.
Well, the Marlins are just another team right now, which is a far cry from what they were 2 years ago. A team that made the playoffs, a team that was competing, that was growing, and now they're back. They're not irrelevant, but they've fallen back a little bit. And that's a shame. That's a real shame because I really think the Marlins definitely have something of a lineup. And so far, injuries and just no movement in the front office to really want to continue competing. It's as if the Marlins become relevant, but because they're the identity of irrelevancy, they fall back to what the identity was. And it's just like, why? Like, why don't you want this team to grow? Why don't you want your fan base to be excited? I know the fan base isn't very exciting in Miami, but it's like, why don't you want to get fans excited for this team?
And that's the weird thing because you look at them and you go, they're good. They got great young pitching.
Yeah.
They need one thumping bat in that lineup, and they lose Jorge Soler to free agency. Excuse me, and they don't replace it. And that's just, if I was a Marlins fan, that would be very frustrating for me.
And this was going to be my question to the two of you. Is it the lack of a fan base that is a morale buster for this team?
No, because you have to have a reason to bring the fans in.
Okay.
So, I mean, argument's sake, look across the state, the Rays don't sell out every game, but you know what? They give people a reason to go to the Trop
Yeah.
because they're always competitive. The Marlins, they win a World Series, they tear the whole damn thing down and start it over again. At some point, you have to build a sustainable winner. And sustained success means more fans coming in.
Mhm. And you know, the Marlins Park, you know, is in a weird part of Miami. Like weird part where there's, according to my brother who was down there, not, you know, exciting. Neighborhoods kind of run down and everything, but then you have this ballpark in the middle of the place, you know. So it's a shame. It's a real shame. Big market team. Again, Miami's not necessarily a great place for sports and stuff. And even though the Dolphins and the Heat are, kind of good. But like, and I get it, but it's like not even staying relevant is the shocker to me. That's the shocker to me. For, you know, owner that has billions of dollars and you know a team that's young players, good team, good veterans surrounding them too. Shane, I don't get it sometimes.
Yeah, and just to follow up, Dan, on your point about the town as a whole, who do Marlins have to get behind? Like with the Heat, okay, Jimmy Butler, that's a guy.
Mm.
You know, the Dolphins, if you want to get behind Tua, that's a guy. The Marlins don't have that guy. You want to say Sandy Alcantara? Dude pitches every 5 days. You
Right.
can't get behind a starting pitcher like that. No offense to Sandy Alcantara. You need a position player to be the face of the franchise at some point. And they haven't had a position player be the face of the franchise since Hanley Ramirez. And if
Yeah,
you want to go further, it's Miguel Cabrera.
yeah, or even Giancarlo
Or
Stanton,
AJ Burnett.
you know, even Giancarlo Stanton,
Yeah.
like when he was with the Marlins, Stanton. The Marlins were not good, but he gave them something to talk about because he kept raking home runs like it was nothing.
Yeah. I think about it. They had an outfield of Christian Yelich, Marcell Ozuna, and Giancarlo Stanton. And now it's you. Like you're hoping
Yeah,
Jazz Chisholm turns into the player you hope he could be.
yeah.
But you're hoping. He's been injured, he's had some other issues. But they need a guy you can get behind.
Luis Ariz too. He needs to
Yeah.
be the damn good hitter he was with Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah. He was great last year, especially in the first half.
Yeah, man.
All right. Next, I'm going to lump these two teams together because I think, along with the Dodgers, these are your heavyweights in the National League. We're talking Phillies, who went 1972, and then the Braves, who went 104 and 58. The Braves have added Chris Snell, Mets legend Jared Kelenic, Ronaldo Lopez, Aaron Bummer, and Adam Duvall, while the Phillies have added Kobe Allard and Michael Rucker. I put names down. I can't tell you how big they are. But the last 2 years, Mark, the Phillies have knocked the Braves out of the playoffs. Is this the year the Phillies overtake the Braves and win the NL East?
You know, as much as I like to hope so, my dislove for the Braves is nothing new, and that's just being a Mets fan. I look at the rotation, I look at the player positioning, and I guess you have to say this all falls on Zach Wheeler's shoulders in a way. He's the only one signed for a 3-year deal. He's going to get every penny of it. Nothing past that. No options. No nothing. He wins a World Series, whether it's this year or next year. He's going to get his lifetime contract done, over with, whatever. They got an impressive team, pitching wise, good old first half Tajon Walker. I mean, if he shows the first half like he did for the Mets that year, Philly could be sitting 6-7 games up. But Mike brought up a very good point. Can they knock out the same team they knocked out of the playoffs? And the Atlanta Braves are not going to be knocked out in the regular season. I'm not going to say they were tired and exhausted in the playoffs, but stamina definitely came into play at the end. I don't think you can say this is all on Bryce Harper's shoulders because he's returning from injury and he's just going to be a really much more of a DH this season to start off. It's on Trey Turner. Trey Turner has to be the catalyst that gets this lineup going. And with his speed and his contact power of getting the ball in play, if he can get men on base and help get to Harper in those RBI situations, I think that's where they're going to be greatly used, with the use of also Bryce Harper, Alec Baum, and then of course Mr. 1.191 but will hit 60 home runs, Kyle Schwarber.
Schwarber's just such a beast.
Every year too, man. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Man, how about Zach Wheeler getting his contract again?
Yep.
The commitment, it's shocking what commitment can do for you, right? It's shocking how the Mets weren't as committed with Zach Wheeler when he was good, but the Phillies are.
Right.
You think he turns it up a notch this season? Now that he got his, I think he does.
Well,
I think he has to.
I think if they want to get to where they want to get to, I think he has to.
Yeah. But he's not the pitcher that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking more of Aaron Nola.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's his time to have a really big time season. That's just my honest opinion. And he's had it before, but I think he is going to be pitching more like the ace of the staff than Zach Wheeler is.
Well, he's going to have to after the contract they gave him, because we know one thing about these markets, whether it's Philly, Chicago, New York, Boston. When you sign a big contract and you don't live up to it, the fans let you hear about it. Sports talk radio lets you hear about it. Everyone lets you hear about it. So they're going to need Nola. They're going to need Wheeler. Because the Braves on the other side, the depth of the lineup, Acuna, Albies, Riley, Matt Olson led the National League in home runs. Meanwhile, their number 9 hitter, Michael Harris, was Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. The depth of the Braves lineup. Then you look at their rotation. Spencer Strider and his wonderful but terrible mustache, Max Fried. And then they go out and they get Chris Sale thinking they can fix what's been ailing him, which has really been injuries. If Chris Sale is right, that's as dominant of a top three in a rotation as you could have.
Agreed.
But the question is, can he stay healthy? But here's the thing on the Braves. The Braves have become the same thing as the Dodgers, and it's the same thing as certain football teams. The regular season no longer matters. It's what happens once you get to October. Because if you don't win, if you're the Braves, Dodgers, the season is a failure.
Yeah.
For both teams, yes.
Yeah. And for the Braves, the last 2 years to get knocked out by the Phillies.
Yeah. That had to hurt, especially in 2022 when they were the top of all things Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Ousted in the division series of all places by the Phillies.
Yeah, they couldn't get to the LCS, and then so it's going to be an interesting year in the NL East.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an interesting year in baseball. The season starts technically this week with the 2 games in Korea.
Yes, that is right. That is right. They do have the what is it? The Korea? Is that what it is?
It's in South Korea.
Yeah. The Dodgers
and the Padres.
Mike is covering that game for us on the network.
Mm-hmm.
He's flying out.
I'll be up at 11 a.m. afterwards, man.
Oh my God.
Next week, we'll recap those 2 games. We will also give seasonal predictions, awards, divisions, who wins the World Series, and why I was robbed of an Oscar last week for best role, for best actor. I couldn't believe I got robbed like that, but, we'll take that up with the committee at a later point. But until next week, for Dan, Mark, I'm Mike. Thanks for listening to Batter Up here on the Sports Insanity Network. Follow us on social media at SInsanityReal on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. Check out the website www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com for blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Watch the YouTube page. We have got videos coming on great stuff. Click, comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We'll talk to you next week, everybody, and enjoy the beautiful weather.